You're looking for a projector that's not just a glossy spec sheet, but something you can actually rely on night after night, that slips into the room without a circus of cables, and that feels like a solid investment instead of a gamble. The big fear most of us have is ending up with a bright room disappointment or a machine that needs a technician every few months. You want something that works straight out of the box, delivers the picture you imagined, and stays under control on the monthly budget. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I started digging into the 4K laser projector market, the first thing that kept me up was the sheer number of high lumens, high resolution promises that never quite match everyday life. A lot of reviewers will tell you the projector can throw a 100-inch image, but they rarely explain how far you have to sit, how dark the room needs to be, or whether you'll be fighting the built-in fan noise while trying to hear dialogue. That's where the Optoma UHZ58LV tries to separate itself. It's marketed as a portable dual-laser engine with 3000 lumens and native 4K UHD. Those numbers sound impressive, but the real question is, does that translate to a pleasant home theater experience without turning your living room into a dim-lit cinema? Let's start with the picture. The native 3840x2160 resolution means you're actually seeing a true 4K image, not a pixel-doubled 1080p trick. For movie nights, that translates into razor-sharp details on everything from the fine grain of a classic film to the intricate textures in a modern video game. The HDR10 Plus support adds a layer of dynamic range that makes bright highlights pop and shadows retain depth, provided you have an HDR source. In practice, I tried a recent 4K HDR streaming title and the blacks were noticeably deeper than on my 1080p TV, while the highlights on a fireworks scene really burst without washing out. The built-in Filmmaker mode also locks the picture to the director's intent, removing aggressive post-processing that many TVs apply by default. If you're a cinephile who cares about color accuracy and detail, this projector delivers a surprisingly cinema-like feel for a living room setup. The dual-laser light source is where the UHZ58LV gets its long-term value. Unlike lamp-based projectors that lose brightness after a few hundred hours and require costly replacements, lasers maintain their output for thousands of hours and turn on instantly. I didn't have to wait for a warm-up period, the image was ready the moment the projector powered up. That convenience is a huge plus for spontaneous movie marathons or for a family that wants to start a game without a 5-minute delay. Moreover, the laser's color gamut is wider than most lamp systems, which helps HDR content look more vibrant and true to life. Now, let's talk about the practical side of setting it up. The UHZ58LV is marketed as portable, and the box is indeed lighter than many traditional 4K models, but you still need a decent amount of clearance for the throw distance. At 3000 lumens, the projector performs best in a dim to moderately lit room. If you try to use it in a bright living room with daylight streaming through windows, the image will look washed out despite the lumen rating. For a 100-inch screen, you'll need to place the projector roughly 34 meters away, which means you either need a dedicated media room or a flexible space where you can pull the projector back a few feet. The setup isn't plug-and-play. If you live in a bright apartment, you'll want blackout curtains or a projector screen with a gain that helps boost contrast. Sound is another practical consideration. The UHZ58LV doesn't include built-in speakers that can compete with a decent home theater system, so you'll need external audio. That's fine if you already have a soundbar or a receiver, but for someone who expects an all-in-one solution, it adds extra cost and cable management. On the upside, the projector's HDMI ports support ARC and the newer HDMI 2.0 standard, meaning you can pass a high-quality audio signal to your sound system without a separate audio cable. Just make sure your source device is also HDMI compatible with 4K HDR, otherwise you won't be able to fully exploit the projector's capabilities. Reliability is a frequent worry with high-end projectors, especially when you factor in laser safety and firmware updates. Optoma's reputation in the laser space is solid, and the UHZ58LV ships with a 2-year